Hi, I'm Robin.
And I'm Bill.
Welcome to Not the Retirement Show. Today we're chatting about 5 holistic wellness goals that you need in retirement. And when I was thinking about this one today, for me, I don't know whether to say they're goals or questions that you need to constantly ask yourself. Let me give you an example. I really believe that everybody needs to ask themselves on a regular basis, where am I heading?
I think that's right. I think probably though, the thing to do would be to try and bring a definition to what is holistic wellness. I think there are so many bits and pieces and parts of that. I mean, we use the word holistic. I think we overuse it, to be perfectly honest, because it means everything. Well, I don't think life works on that basis. There are any number of health issues, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, that can, be permutations of different things. That, I mean, what is holistic wellness? How do we define that?
Well, to me, it's the concept of looking at every aspect of your life that can impact the quality of your wellness together as a whole thing. You can't just go and get your teeth cleaned and expect your eyesight to therefore be fine. It doesn't work that way. Everything builds on everything else. So you need to be thinking about your mental, your emotional, your physical, your psychological, your spiritual wellness as layers of the same sandwich. And how are you going to keep everything moving in the right direction? Which comes back to my question, where are you heading in life with all of that?
Well, yeah, and I think as we get older, probably physical health, your general physical health, it probably sits at the top of the tree, because as we get older, our health starts to fade in some respects, or we pay more attention to it. So I think the physical health is probably at the top of that list, but also things like emotional health. Mm-hmm. Can you handle the emotions of getting older? And sometimes I think we kind of overlook that. We skip past it. Nobody's really paying much attention to the health of people, particularly in a family type of situation, where people can get upset at the smallest kinds of things. I could put my hand up to that, because you are thinking differently as you get older. So therefore, things like emotional health obviously comes into play. Is it as strong or as important as physical? The physical wellness, the physical health, probably not, but don't overlook it.
Believe it or not, how I would address thinking about emotional health is by asking, what am I learning? Because if your mind's engaged, if you have a goal that you're working towards, if you're learning something new, then your outlook on life, your emotional state is more likely to be positive, to be in a good place.
Oh, but again, things like financial health, how does that impact your overall holistic wellness? If you're not in a good position financially, does that impact it? Of course it does. So therefore, that comes into play, as well. Things like cognitive health. Are you keeping this thing, in gear? Are you keeping it in motion? Whether you do puzzles or whatever it may be, Sudoku, is that, I always say that wrong, Sudoku or something like that, isn't it? I never get it right.
Sudoku.
We're getting it wrong. Anyway, you get the idea. You get the idea. So again, that's another part of it. So, as you correctly say, it's sort of a mind and body and spirit, all somehow, get mixed up and come together to look at the overall wellness situation.
So when you're thinking about your psychological wellness, one of the questions I would ask is, what relationship am I building? Because one of the reasons that we fall into what I'm going to call despair or depression is that we're not happy with the state of our relationships. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to choose a relationship that you want to repair, or choose a relationship that's working well, that you want to build, that you want to take to the next level, and consciously work on that.
Well, we talk about stress factors a lot. And I think as we get older, we talk about stress factors more often for good reason, because a lot of things come into play. In other words, when you're in your working years, you've got other things to be thinking about. You know, you've got the job, you've got the boss, you've got your colleagues, you've got this, you've got so many things. I'm not saying you ignore the stress factors when you're working, but they kind of take, you know, second place. Whereas when you've got more time to work at home or be at home or just to think, stress factors start to come into play. Obviously, as we've said, you know, physical health, you know, is a big part of that. But there's so many pieces that cause stress. And as you say, you know, if you can't control stress, you know, the stress factors, then, you know, are you going to move towards depression, stuff like that? I think so. I'd love to hear from you if you have emotional stress factors, and we're not asking personal information. We're just saying, you know, is emotional wellness a part of life, a part of your life? Is it something that we should be paying attention to? Drop us some comments underneath, and we'll come back to you, you know, in later parts of the series.
Well, you just mentioned for me what I call the big C. Now, I know you all are thinking of something else, but for me, the big C is the temptation to try to control things too much. And when we are not working anymore and we have all this free time, if we don't have enough to do, if we're not happy about how things are going, what do we reach for? Oh yeah, we start trying to over control things. We start looking for things to stress about. And that can have a very negative impact, not just on your own life, on the life of everybody around you who has to interact with you. So for me, the question that I would ask, instead of what am I getting, what am I controlling, I would simply ask, what am I contributing? What am I giving to society, to the people in my life? And work on what you can give as opposed to what you can get.
Well, I think we tend to overthink. You know,
you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, just things come up in everyday life. And because we have time, I mean, I hesitate to keep going back to that point, but it's true. You know, because we've got time to think, I think sometimes we overthink. We spend too much time. I wonder if this, I wonder if that. What if I say this? What if I say that, etc. Whereas, you know, when you're otherwise gainfully employed in the working years, you kind of move on. You just say, well, I'll fix that later, or I'll talk about that at the weekend, or, you know, I'll maybe phone somebody to get some help. Whereas, you know, in the retirement years, you've got all of this time. What are you going to do about it? Or, you know, what stress factors, I'm going back to that, pop up in life, and you think about it and think about it and think about it.
You know what somebody told me, and I'm sorry, I don't know actually who came up with this, but there is a theory out there that said that if you told yourself that you're going to allocate 1 hour a day for any kind of worrying, any kind of negative thinking, and that every time a thought comes up in your head, you're going, no, it's not 2 o'clock, it's not time to worry yet. And then you sat down at the appointed time and said, right, now we're going to worry, now we're going to think, now we're going to try to control. That within like 5 minutes, you'd be going, why am I here? Why am I doing this? The point being that it's sort of a game that we play with ourselves as opposed to something that we actually really do need to be doing.
I've got the solution to that, though. Make it 3 o'clock in the morning when you're supposed to be sleeping. And so that you say, oh, that's right, I'll take care of those issues at 3 o'clock in the morning. And maybe you'll just sleep all the way through.
And miss the meeting.
And miss it.
That
and you've missed
good.
the whole thing, you know. So I really want folks to think about the emotional side of things, because, you know, I'm a big proponent of the idea of psychological stress, particularly in retirement. Call it emotional if you wish, call it psychological if you, whatever is your best word for you. That's a huge factor as you get older, because you conjure up things, you think about things that are perhaps not as important realistically. And I think we focus much more heavily on the physical wellness part of it. Nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But don't overlook that emotional wellness factor. Please don't do that.
Indeed. Well, if you're still watching, we really appreciate that you've given some of your time to us. And why don't you subscribe to the channel, and we'll chat again soon. Take care, everyone.